All right, welcome everyone to today's webinar on preserving, scanning, and analyzing hidden services. I'm Justin Seitz, and just a couple of quick house cleaning items. This will be recorded, so it's always the most common question. So don't worry if you have to drop or you run into internet issues. This will be posted to our YouTube channel at the end. I encourage you to ask as many questions as you like. You can ask them at any point. Don't wait for the end of the webinar. And naturally, if you have any other questions or anything that you need to follow up with me, it's Justin at Hunch.ly. We'll be here probably for about an hour today. Sometimes they can stretch a little longer depending on questions or how many mistakes I make. But really, this should be a lot of fun. I'm going to show you some stuff that I haven't done before on a webinar, and hopefully it's some tools and tricks that you can use when you go back to work. So we're not going to be covering like an in-depth review of Hunchly. I run webinars every couple of weeks on kind of a full training session. We will touch base a little bit on how Hunchly works, but we'll kind of leave it from there. Otherwise, we're going to try to focus as much time on looking at Tor and accessing hidden services, that type of thing. So with that, hopefully you can hear me and see my screen, and that's all coming through loud and clear for you. What you're looking at right now is the Hunchly dashboard. So I'm actually using the new release of Hunchly that will be out not next week, but the week after. So I think that's like the 28th week. It's going to be out for sure on that week. So I'm going to show you a few things. And of course, the interface is actually cleaned up. Some of the icons might look a little different, but don't fret. It's all the same thing largely until we get into a report builder, if I get a chance to do that. And really, if you've never seen Hunchly before, this is your first time kind of hearing me do one of these. Hunchly is a very simple tool that follows you around while you're investigating in your browser. And when I say browser, that is anything Chromium based. So that's Google Chrome, Chromium itself, Microsoft Edge, or the privacy focused Brave browser. So while you're browsing around doing your thing, Hunchly's capturing every page. It's timestamping it, storing it on your hard drive locally. Now, the thing that I really like about Hunchly as well is when I'm doing dark web work is being able to actually preserve hidden services that I'm looking at while I'm doing that investigative research. And so today what we'll do is we'll first start by how do we get Chrome to even connect into the Tor network? How does that actually work? And what is a little trick that we can use to do that? Now, keeping in mind that if you are doing Tor research, you also have to kind of keep in mind that using Chrome will make you stand out a little bit. So this isn't a presentation on operational security, it's about preservation. So with that, we'll get kind of started here. Now, the first thing I always do, and you should too when you're using Hunchly in particular, or any other tool that has cases, is create a new case for your work. So today I'm just going to create a new case, and I'm going to call it Hidden Service Research. Perfect. So that's it. This is going to be a place where, as I'm working through this, we're going to be storing the pages and other work in this particular case. Now, normally what you're going to do is you're going to fire up Chrome and go do your regular work. And that's totally fine when you're on the surface web. But when you're dealing with Tor, you actually need to get Chrome to connect in through Tor in a really specific way. Now, a quick trick on how to do this, instead of kind of going through a complex setup, or as you'll see later, we're going to get into like some funky things like Docker containers. What we can actually do is we can use the Tor browser. So if you actually download and install the Tor browser, just a quick Google for that, you can fire up the Tor browser, and what this will do is actually create a proxy for us. It'll allow us to actually tell Chrome to connect into this running Tor browser. So what we need to do is we start up the Tor browser. It's now actually up and running. Everything's looking good. And then we create a simple shortcut. So here I've actually created just a Chrome shortcut in Windows. So there's a million different ways of doing this. The easiest is to just find the regular Chrome shortcut and right click on it in Windows and say send to desktop, and it'll create a shortcut for you. And what I've done in this shortcut is actually added some command line parameters. So I'll pull this into the middle of the screen. Now, normally you're just going to have a shortcut that points to Chrome itself. So I'll just kind of scroll over so you can look. This is your normal, right up to this chrome.exe part. You're just going to have Chrome open like normal. However, what I've done here is actually created some configuration options so that when I double click that on my desktop, what this is telling Chrome to do is actually connect into the local proxy that Tor browser has established for me. I'm going to show you a much quicker trick too that I learned recently before the day is out. But this is how I do it. I just fire up the Tor browser, and then I have this Chrome shortcut that I can now open up for me. Okay, so what we can do is we can just simply double click here. All right. And if we're really, which we are unlucky because I pointed the wrong, so you're actually going to have to watch me recreate these steps. So there was no Hunchly installed there. We'll just take a quick peek here and make sure that we are not, and this is actually a good, review for folks. So if you never see Hunchly, there's kind of two ways that you can go about this. Now I'm using a development version. So normally what you can literally do is go Hunchly to Chrome extension, and you can download it straight from the store. So this is something that a lot of people kind of run into. In my case, I should have one installed already. It is just simply that I have a special developer mode engaged here. So here's my regular one. And if I turn on developer mode, I'm going to have to actually pop in Phil's special one that he sent me. So if you give me 1 second to do that, which is always, this is the case when you're running these webinars, that you end up running into these little snafus, even though you've tested it 100 times. So I'm going to just quickly do that. You won't see anything on my screen while I shift some files over. It'll just take me a second. No questions so far, I also see, which is nice. All right, and by the way, the current version of Hunchly is 227. So I've had a few questions about that in the last day as well. It's 227, so I'm just going to pop open the new version here. Sorry, this is always involves a couple of steps when I'm working in this virtual machine. And by the way, I always do my Tor work in a virtual machine. It's just one of those things, and you can generally use virtual machines for free, just simply using VirtualBox. So it doesn't cost you anything. All right. Sorry, we'll just give me 1 second here. This is always a good time here. All right, I think I should be good to go pretty soon. Get you back up and running. All right, all right, all right. Double check here. Okay, I'll get you back into my screen here. Awesome, sorry about that. So I've actually had to, because I'm using a new version, because I wanted to show off some stuff, I just had to manually load the extension. So it takes a couple of steps. I'm gonna close that. All right, so this version of Chrome, and again, just to review, all I've done is added some command line options here, and I'll show you where to get those command line options as well very shortly. So all I'm doing is double clicking it here, and now this version of Chrome should be connecting in through the local Tor browser that's running. Now, I want to bring Hunchly along for the ride. So currently Hunchly is disabled, so there's no automatic capture happening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the automatic capture, and I'm going to pick hidden service research. Okay, perfect. So what I should be able to do is go, what is my IP? And this is not my IP address, my normal IP address. This is a IP address that is actually the exit node where I'm leaving the Tor network. So I now know that my browser is working through Tor because this is not my normal IP address. But the real test is I need to actually browse to a hidden service. So hidden services is just a way of saying this is a service that's being hosted on the Tor network. And so how we can actually do this is I will use the Hunchly Dark Web Report. So if you've never seen the Hunchly Dark Web Report, you can head to our website. I can even show that briefly, hunch.ly. You'll also notice that my internet feels very slow, right? This is also because this traffic is being routed directly through Tor. And depending on my connection in and who I'm kind of using along the way, this can actually end up, oh yeah, look, so actually another problem you'll run into is you'll run into things like this, where you'll have firewalls, you'll have security programs and other things that will prevent you from browsing somewhere. For example, if I Google even my name, sometimes Google will say, hey, you need to solve a CAPTCHA to get here. So our website via our provider is actually blocking Tor exit nodes currently, or at least this particular Tor node. The thing is, you can go to our website, scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a dark web mailing list. And what it'll do is send you a link where you can get an Excel spreadsheet effectively of hidden services that we've crawled in the last 24 hours. So I'm going to open up today's report. This was sent out this morning. I got LibreOffice on this particular machine. Now, we can talk a bit about the hidden services that we see here and what this report is actually telling you. So if you look at the bottom here, we have new today, down, and up. So new today is any reference that, any new hidden service that we found in the last 24 hours that we hadn't discovered before. So this one here, this enter recovery, enter the key, I don't know what this actual hidden service is. This was new in the last 24 hours. So I'm going to copy it and we'll go browse to it in Chrome to validate that it's actually working. Now, if I click the down tab, what this is telling you are any hidden services that are currently down. So they might have been services that we had at some point picked up, crawled, and then they no longer respond, or they might have been a service that we picked up, like somewhere had a link to it, and it just no longer is functioning, or it never did after we picked up a link to it. So this is going to give you quite a long list of services. This date on the right-hand side is the last time that we were able to reach that hidden service. So this can be useful for backwards-looking research as well. And our dark web report also includes a link to archives. So you have the ability to kind of click on it and you'll see all of the hidden service reports we've generated in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years worth of data now. So you can actually start to backtrack through that data, or if you want to write some custom code to store it all in the database, you can do all that yourself for sure. But the up tab is actually really useful because this is telling us all of the hidden services we were able to reach in the last 24 hours that were still up. Now, you may be wondering why some hidden services have these really long addresses. Okay, so anytime you see a .onion address, this is telling you this has to be routed through Tor, and some of them have very short addresses. Now, what this is that these long ones are what are called V3 onions. So this is the new addressing format. I actually don't understand all of the underlying privacy and security concerns around long versus short, but there are some. And that's why the Tor project has switched and forced all new Tor browser and Tor software to only obey these V3s. Now, the scrapers we use, they still use an older method of connecting into Tor, so we will pick up these V2 onions. If you punch in one of these V2 onions, these short ones, into Tor browser, or you try to proxy it through Chrome like I'm showing you, it won't actually, you won't be able to browse to it directly. So I'm going to show you later how we kind of stand up a Tor proxy that will obey V2 and V3. I'm not, however, going to show you how to configure your browser. That won't be covered today, but there are ways of still being able to browse here. So if you do end up running into this situation where you have these long ones and the short ones, and there's something in the shortened URL or the V2 onion, sorry, that you want to go browse to, just note that you're going to have to do a bit of legwork to make that happen. So these are really interesting because they are ones that we can go and browse to right away. So for example, I'll take this Corona Pass generator one. Let's jump back into our Chrome. And if all is actually set up properly, I should be able to browse straight to it. Here's hoping that this hasn't switched to something really bad in the last 24 hours. All right, so this is really handy, okay? For starters, by browsing here, Hunchly is going to do a capture of this hidden service, and it's also going to examine it for some of the underlying data that might be there. So you can see that whether you're on the surface web, whether you're doing hidden service browsing, Hunchly's along for the ride, and it's actually looking at preserving this. It's extracting pieces of data as well from the pages that you're browsing. So there are email addresses and other things being extracted for you. And I'm going to show you how to take some notes. But this is really nice because hidden services can be up and down all the time. And if you're investigating something, it's not uncommon to hit a hidden service today, tomorrow it's gone, and it may come back later. But if you haven't preserved what you're looking at, you can lose a lot of intelligence or even evidence, or you might lose a lot of context around what's going on with that service. So this is why I like using Hunchly to kind of be along for the ride while I'm working on it. Now, the other thing that we can do is, of course, if anytime we find something interesting, my kind of muscle memory is to take a note in Hunchly. So I'll select take note, interesting Corona pass generator, and I believe it's like for QR codes of some kind. So definitely interesting. But of course, depending on the type of work you do, there might be a ton of stuff in here. So there might be anything from bulletproof hosting. There's CSAM material definitely being picked up by our crawler. You can read it often in the title right here of the web page. You can kind of see like what is being offered here, right? So this is kind of nice because you can search through this or scroll through, and anything that's kind of within your purview, whether you're doing financial research or whether you're in law enforcement, um, this will be really useful for you. All right, cool. So any questions so far? All right. All right, great. So I missed the explanation why Chrome is needed and not just develop the extension for Tor browser. Actually, our extension would work totally fine in Firefox. However, Firefox does not have the MHTML capture engine built into it. So the rest of our extension actually would work totally fine, but Firefox doesn't have that capability. It's one of the few things that they did not bring over when they adopted the kind of extension model that Chrome did. So it's one of those things that we wish we would be able to do. The other part of it is generally in Tor browser, they really don't want you installing extensions directly into the browser. It's one of those things where they kind of it's something to kind of avoid. So in this case, again, like I use Chrome to do this work mainly because I'm less concerned generally in 99% of my investigations. I'm less concerned that someone's going to pick up that I'm showing up with a Chrome browser to a hidden service. Depending on your investigations, you may want to think about that risk profile and whether you have to change some of these tactics for sure. So, great question. But yeah, we would love to work on Firefox. Absolutely. Great. No other questions that I'm seeing. Yeah, no problem. Cool. So, here's another thing that I learned recently about accessing Tor and using Chrome to do so. Uh, so I'm going to close Chrome, my special Chrome right there, and I'm actually going to close my Tor browser as well. And I want to show you this because this is pretty cool. And this is not me like giving a product endorsement, by the way. I don't make any money by saying this. But one thing I did not know was that on a paid Proton VPN account, what you can actually do is if you fire up Proton VPN, okay, Proton VPN actually has Tor access. So what you can do is if you're looking for Tor access, what you can do is in the search bar on the left-hand side is type in Tor, and you want to look for anything that ends in -Tor. Okay, so these are and they have a little onion symbol beside them. So if I connect through here, we'll see what happens. Never done this one live either. All right, cool. So I got a new public IP address. I'm connected through Tor. Now, what this means is that in my regular Chrome browser, with no kind of, no special configuration, no nothing like that, I'm going to go back up and grab that Corona Pass again. Or actually, let's grab that new one. We'll grab this one. So I'm just copying, paste. I should be able to browse to this .onion in my regular Chrome. Look at that. Super cool. So I had no idea that Proton VPN had this feature enabled. There may be other VPN providers that do it as well, but it's a zero configuration way of gaining access to Tor, and it's through the Proton network. So definitely feel free to head to their website, check it out. They have an explanation of how some of their infrastructure works, but this was a cool one for me, particularly because I'm like, oh, I don't have to like do this, Tor browser and this special shortcut. I can just fire up Proton VPN, and it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $8 a month or something like that, somewhere in that range. So anyway, I thought I would show that just for those of you who might already be Proton VPN customers. This is a great way of connecting into Tor. All right, cool. So we've covered how to, and I'm actually going to disconnect from there so I don't cause myself any problems. All right, cool. So we've connected into Tor. We've shown how we can preserve hidden services using Hunchly with kind of riding along through Chrome. Again, you don't have to use Chrome. You can use Chromium. You can use one of the other ones, Brave, Edge. Any of those will also work. And someone pointed out in the chat as well that you can use user agent changers, right? So there are ways of making Chrome look very much like a different browser or look like Tor browser. But again, I would caution that if you're really working on something that's security sensitive, be aware that there would be, a lot of stuff that you would have to do. And with Tor browser, they have a lot of kind of blockers in place as well to prevent JavaScript and other things running. So now what I want to do is I'm going to switch gears. So normally we would kind of go through poking around at hidden services and some of that fun stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch gears here. And what we'll talk about instead is if we're interested in a particular hidden service or even a ton of different hidden services, and we want to actually identify what kind of stuff is running on that hidden service, are there opportunities for de-anonymizing the service? And how can we actually scan these services, or is there a way for us to collect intelligence from them? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can actually set up a scanner for free using Google Cloud Shell and actually scan one hidden service and then scan thousands of hidden services and have our own little dark web intelligence database that will allow us to go through those results. So the first thing we're going to do, and again, I'm not connected through Tor now. I'm just using my regular Chrome browser, and I'm going to browse to my Google Cloud Console. So one of the things in Hunchly as well that's an important note here is that there's sometimes domains that I don't want Hunchly capturing on. So what I'll do, for example, is I'll come into this block list management in our settings page, and I'll actually just add like cloud. Actually, I think it's console.cloud.google.com. I could even, if I wanted to, like just put in cloud.google.com and that would catch it as well. So what this is going to do is tell Hunchly not to capture while I'm messing around in my Google Cloud Shell. So I'm going to head to console.cloud.google.com. I'm going to pause for one brief minute as I authenticate. Okay, now all you need is a regular Google account. So all I'm doing right now is my regular Google authentication through my Google account. I'm going to just grab, and I hope you all are using a password manager as well. So I'm grabbing my password out of my password manager. Cool. Just give me, I'm literally just copying and pasting into a password field right now. Awesome. Now let's resume. Cool. So this is what, when you first show up to console.cloud.google.com, this is what you're shown. Now, they'll also offer you, I believe it's like $300 worth of free services. So you don't even need to do that. There's really nothing there that you need to do in terms of like paying for anything or entering a credit card. You just need a Google account that's verified and you can log in and get going. Now, what we're going to use is actually a completely free virtual machine that every cloud user gets on Google, and it is called Cloud Shell. So right here, I'm going to click on Activate Cloud Shell, and this is going to drop me into a Linux machine. So while it's provisioning this up, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Feel free to ask any questions so far. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is install a tool called OnionScan. So this was developed by Sarah Jamie Lewis a few years ago. It's an amazing tool written in Golang. I don't believe that they are maintaining it anymore. I don't think it's been maintained for a few years now. And I noticed in the forums and kind of like in the GitHub issues that people were fighting with getting it compiled, myself included, and also getting it to work on new v3 onions. So what we did was we have a GitHub repo called Funchly for fun stuff that I get to work on. All right. This Chrome Tor settings, so I'll actually copy the link to that and I'll pop it into the chat window for you. This is where you can see the Chrome settings for connecting in through Tor, but we also have OnionScan. So this is our own patched OnionScan where, and including instructions, and again, I'm going to pop this into chat for you. So I also have the instructions here for using Cloud Shell, so following these instructions directly. So there's a very quick and easy way if you don't want to, check the code out yourself and deal with compiling it and all that fun stuff. What we can do is just copy and paste straight from here. What this is going to do is it's going to pull down a little installation script into my Google Cloud Shell. So I'm going to hit enter. That's it. Okay, so now we have this Cloud Shell install OnionScan. You can see the next command is chmod plus X. All that is doing is saying, make this script executable. All right. And all I have to do now is /install. So this is going to actually pull it from all the code from our GitHub repo, pull it into our Cloud Shell. It's going to compile it. And now actually this Cloud Shell will always have OnionScan available forever, right? So it's always going to be there. You have 5 gigs of storage for free in Cloud Shell. But every time I log back into my Cloud Shell now, it's always going to have OnionScan available to me. And I can actually test that by just typing OnionScan. Okay, and I get this output saying that OnionScan is ready to rock. This is very cool. Your Cloud Shell has Golang, Python, Docker, and a bunch of other tools already installed for you, which is really nice. All right, so I've installed OnionScan, and that's the tool that's actually going to be scanning the hidden services for me and pulling back a bunch of information, as we will see shortly. Now what I need to do, because my Cloud Shell has no concept of Tor on its own, there's a great Docker container that I don't have to do a whole bunch of steps to utilize. I can actually just run one command, and what it's going to do is it's going to pull this Docker container down that's got a Tor proxy built in. So this Tor proxy also includes both the kind of socks proxy, which is how we used the Tor browser before with Chrome, and it will also, if you want it to, you can use a full-blown like web-aware proxy that it'll expose. This command here is simply saying, I want to run this Docker container. I want to call it Tor proxy. I'm going to pull it from Docker Hub. This is the name of it, dperson/Tor proxy. And we're going to run it with port 9050, that Tor port, the socks port open. Now, if I hit enter, I actually expect an error here, and I'll show you why. Yeah, so the funny thing is, and I'm not sure why this is, but if you get this error, all it is, for whatever reason, is these double dashes. For whatever reason, there must be some conversion that happens when you copy and paste it in. It just doesn't like it. So you just switch those, if you back them out and hit them again, or if you just type the 2 dashes, it will do that. So it's pulling down the Docker image, and now it's actually running. Okay, so this Tor proxy is already up and running in one command. This is important. Every time you log into your Cloud Shell, you will have to rerun this command. There are tricks around kind of making that Docker container persistent in your Cloud Shell that are beyond the scope of this webinar. But for all intents and purposes, we now have a Tor proxy running in our Cloud Shell. And we have to do a bit of kind of configuration here to figure out how do we tell OnionScan to actually connect into that container and then out to Tor. So again, by referring back here, we have this command docker inspect Tor proxy. Okay, so what this is it's going to tell us some information about that Tor proxy container. So let's run that. Cool. And what's important for us is this IP address right here that says IP address. Again, this is contained in the instructions. This IP address is where that Tor aware SOCKS proxy is actually running. So now what we need to do is test OnionScan to make sure that it's actually going to work to reach out, scan a hidden service, and provide us with some information. So here's how we do that. We go OnionScan. I use the verbose flag. Okay, so this is simply going to print a lot of information out while it is scanning, so I can kind of keep an eye on it. There's also a depth command. By default, OnionScan will really dig into hidden services. So it will follow links, it will dig deep into pages. This is great when you're doing longer scale kind of investigative work on a small number of hidden services. However, when you're kind of, in today's case, we're kind of just kind of sweep across thousands of them, I'm actually just going to set the depth to 1, so it will be much faster for us. Okay, now what we also need to do is set the Tor proxy address, and we're setting it to this IP address here. So 172.18.0.2, and we have to provide the port 9050. And now we're ready to hand it a hidden service. So let's grab a hidden service. I'll just pick one from here. So here, be mindful too, if you see any capitalization in a hidden service, OnionScan's validator will not like that. So I'm just going to grab this one here. And I'm going to go back and paste it in. Okay. And now we see OnionScan starting. Okay. So it looks like it's working, it's scanning, it's doing its thing. Now, what OnionScan is going to do is a bunch of really cool stuff. So it's testing the hidden service for things like Bitcoin addresses, email addresses. It will retrieve fingerprints from running services. So things like SSH, HTTP services. It will also, if it finds certain misconfigurations, it will even tell you, hey, there's actually an IP address being exposed that might tell you where that hidden service is actually hosted on the internet. Really useful. Now, what you see now is that it's just kind of, it looks like it's stuck, right? It's not doing anything. It's done. It said it's found some identities. It's issued this little report, right? Kind of telling you what it's found so far. It's not actually stuck. What it's done is it actually has its own dashboard that it fires up so that you can go through the results of your scans. And the cool thing is that it opens this dashboard on port 8080 and your Cloud Shell is already pre-configured so that it will use your Google authentication to allow you to view whatever's running on port 8080 in your Cloud Shell. So even if you all browse to this URL right now, you should not be able to see it. So by clicking that button, again, the web preview button right here, this automatically opened up my OnionScan correlations lab. And it's telling you you have 72 correlations to hunt through. Now, the thing with the search bar is that it is not a full text search. So it's not like a Google interface that will allow you to just type in any word and it will pick it up. So in our rundown here, if you scroll to the bottom of our page here, I actually give you some common ones that you can search for. So for example, you can search for email dash address. Sorry. So email dash address. And it will come back and tell you any email addresses that it's found. Okay? You can use the term snapshot as well. There are a handful of others that'll make your searching easy to pull up kind of more of your widespread data that you're looking at. And so what we can do is we can actually click on one of these hidden services and dig in to see what all was found here. So this is telling us things like email addresses, links to surface websites. So this can be, again, additional opportunities to do investigative work here. Identifiers, so HTTP headers, we can cover this in a whole other webinar, but you can actually start running some of these things directly into Shodan, for example, and start looking to see if Shodan has servers that it's picked up that respond with the same headers. So yesterday I was playing around, I found a hidden service, I started running some of the headers into Shodan, and I was able to start out, there was like 600 total servers on the entire internet. And then I kept adding little headers that were picked up from the hidden service. And eventually I had it narrowed down to about 10 hosts on the internet that had this particular set of headers. So Shodan's a great place to start copying and pasting some of these in. All right. Now, another way to search actually using the Hunchly Dark Web Report as a guide is you can use the title. So the title is actually an identifier in OnionScan. So if I switch back to the main screen just to show you, let's try searching for the title. So this will work. So this is handy again, just to be able to come back and if you want to find a hidden service that you've scanned or you've looked at in the past. All right. Now this OnionScan data, it's stored in your Cloud Shell, and it's going to be stored there permanently. Okay. So if you haven't done a scan and you just drop back into your Cloud Shell, and you want to just open that correlation lab to go through data that you had before, you can use the command OnionScan mode analysis. So it's not performing a scan, but what it's doing is opening up this analysis lab and the database. So this will work for you. All right, cool. Oh, it looks like we have a question. I'm going to take a quick pause if people have questions, and then we're going to get into some big time scanning. Oh, okay. The bad dash is causing the Docker run command is actually in the README file. Okay, cool. I will have to check that, Eric. Thank you for letting me know about that dash issue. I couldn't figure out why that double dash thing was making Docker fail. So that's definitely a good one. Good one to know. Awesome. I don't see any other questions. Feel free again to ask questions about getting your Cloud Shell set up, anything like that. I'm not a Google or GCP expert by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely if anything I've said so far is confusing or you're having a tough time following along, ask away Definitely. All right. So often I get asked, how do I, if I want to like get an idea of a whole bunch of hidden services or I want to scan a bunch of them, how do I do that? So the cool thing with OnionScan is that you can feed it a list of onions instead of one by one or kind of piecemeal working through them. And this is really where some of the correlation lab becomes super cool. So the quickest way to do this if I'm going to like do kind of a big sweep and see what's out there and what's interesting is I will use the Hunchly dark web report. Conversely, another way that you can do this is you can, for example, go to omnia.fi. There are some others like Torch. I know that I think darksearch.io is now either a paid service, I think, but Omnia is great. What you can do here, for example, if you want like counterfeit, you can run a text, just a keyword search in Omnia, and you can kind of be poking through various hidden services. You can take notes of them if you want, or copy and paste, however you want to build a list of them. But you can think about terms that you might be interested in, where you're kind of like, interested in a particular topic area, and you can start to build a list of onions that you're interested in general. So I'll do that via Omnia as well. Um, the other thing is, again, in the Hunchly Dark Web report, if there's things that are related specifically to what you're working on, you can be copying and pasting them as well. So two kind of different techniques for building up big lists. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the entire Hunchly Dark Web report. So I'm going to just scroll all the way to the bottom, and there is about 2,600. Okay. I'm going to hit Control C to copy. I'm going to jump back into my Cloud Shell. I'm going to use the tried, tested, and true nano. Okay. And I'm just going to open a file called onions.txt and paste them all in. All right. So I've literally pasted in all 2,600 of them in here. I'm going to hit Control O and enter. That's just going to write the file out. I'm going to hit Control X to exit. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the up arrow to go back through my command history, because I don't want to type all that back out. I'm going to make a slight change here. Okay, I'm going to go list onions.txt. All right, I'm going to leave the depth at 1. So increasing that to 10 is actually really cool. Leaving it at 100 will just slow things down. And your Cloud Shell can time out. So you definitely want to be kind of mindful of some of that. Or again, there are ways for you to, if you're a more technical user, you don't have to use Cloud Shell. You can just install Go 117 into like a DigitalOcean droplet or AWS and go do your own thing totally. But what this is going to do is it's going to kick off a scan against all of those onions. And it's going to do, I believe, roughly 10 at a time. So now you're going to see a lot of output flowing here. So it's actually scanning multiple hidden services at once. It is updating that database. You can see kind of that first onion that we scanned before just got completed. It found that email address. It's doing its thing. And it will run like this and generate thousands and thousands and thousands of data points for you. So while that is running right now, we'll let that kind of peel away on our screen. I see that there's a few things down in the chat window. I will pop out of my VM here and have a look. All right, cool. Definitely need some replays on YouTube. Yep, and I'll timestamp this video so that it's really easy to figure out where, where in the video I'm doing what I'm doing. And again, these in our GitHub repo, the steps are easily, and I built and reran through these steps countless times. So the steps should be really straightforward to just be able to set this up yourself as well. That's why I wanted written instructions. And naturally, like, feel free to go praise Sarah, and I link directly to their repo here. Sarah is brilliant, a very, very brilliant researcher, does a lot of really amazing work. Okay, cool. All right, let's take the next question here. All right. Yeah, so good question here. And, everybody's saying I'm still a super noob. Trust me, I'm a super noob. Like, this is stuff relating, this is kind of like, stuff I fumbled around and figured out over the last few weeks, or you might have saw me tweeting about it even about a month ago. So definitely, we're all learning here, right? We're all having to learn some new stuff. We don't have a Discord, so someone had asked this. Do we have a Discord? So it's something we've discussed. When our team expands a little bit, we're looking at having someone that can be kind of engaged on that front. But feel free, we'll take all of your emails. We respond to all of them. I'll even just fire my email in there, just@hunch.ly, so that you have it. All right. Next question. Do cloud providers ever detect or block Tor traffic? So I haven't seen cloud providers do that on the way out. I definitely have seen all kinds of other services block Tor traffic. So even like some of our common Intel or OSINT tools, like they'll just block you coming in off of a Tor relay for a number of reasons, right? Like people kind of abuse them. They'll deploy their scrapers that are aggressively pulling data from websites, and they'll kind of abuse the Tor network that way. So lots of providers have kind of taken the stance that we're either going to make you authenticate, yourself using a CAPTCHA, or we're just going to outright block you. So not a ton of fun there. We'll just do a quick update here. I see some more questions coming in. All right, so we're up to 153 correlations. All right. Still plugging away through some of these, and again, you'll see like certain parts of it where it will be, it'll fail to connect to some, it'll kind of hang for a bit, and then it'll start picking up again. All right. All right, can you make your super scan more specific, like searching for a specific language, words? Yeah, so you could do that in terms of like picking out hidden services specifically from our spreadsheet. And we do this column right here. So this column right here is actually, we do some language detection on the hidden service. So you could sort this by your language of choice, right? And then definitely, sort and make it so that I only want, things that are in Russian, French, English, whatever it might be. So this can help you narrow down your search for particular hidden services that interest you, definitely. Cool. All right, so it's still doing its thing, working its way through some of those hidden services. Again, you're going to see some that are up, down, even since the last time we would have scanned it from our crawlers. You're going to see that we're up to 281 correlations. When I ran it yesterday, I like forgot about it. Actually, it came back. There was like 12,000 to go through, so it will actually amass quite a large data set for you over time. More than enough room in your cloud storage, your 5 gig storage, to handle it, though. All right, cool. Few weeks. This would take me a few years. Well, again, I think conversely, some of the work that you all do, I have absolutely no experience in. So I'm sure if you're ever running a training session, I will have to go and learn myself a lot too, right? Cool. Another question. What's the purpose of using Google Cloud Shell? Can't you just run the OnionScan in the original VM? Yeah, so you can. So you definitely could run OnionScan from a VM or another spot. I had a heck of a time getting OnionScan to compile for me. So I was struggling with, I'm not a Golang person. So we have a very senior Golang developer on our team. Parts of Hunchly is actually written in Go. So they were able to compile it very quickly and easily. But what I was looking for was also the ease of deployment, right? So figuring out a way to make sure that, like, can I teach people how to do this that's free for starters and then doesn't require setting up a VM or like setting up a server somewhere or installing special compiler tools, that kind of thing. So really, like, that was the other big part of it, was making sure that I could kind of reproduce the steps in an easy way. So that was why I chose Cloud Shell, because it's free and a lot of people have Google accounts that they can just drop into. All right, cool. All right, so it's still doing its thing, still at 100, 281. And again, it can run into sections of, like, it'll run in and all of a sudden, like, there's a bunch of services that it can't reach, or, it'll slow down for a period of time. Again, I've let this run for hours before. But what we can start to do is be able to actually start searching through. And my favorite, to just kind of get an idea of what's been snapshotted, is again to use that snapshot command. And today it's running through a bunch of or it's running into a bunch of hidden services it can't route to. If this happens again, a lot of it is just allowing it to run and get through the list of onions as it's kind of processing them all. Some of it's going to be up, some of it's going to be down. All right, I'm just going to take a quick look back at the QA box while that's still doing its thing. And if you ever get like, you're like, this is taking too long, like you can switch again, you can kill this process, you can switch back to more directed searching, right? So you can kind of say, okay, well, I want to scan, a particular service, or I want to take a look at something. Again, I can actually show you as well that OnionScan will obey those. It will obey the v2 URLs as well. So I'll demonstrate this very quickly. We'll just make sure everything's still up and running. And if you're ever concerned that your Docker containers died, you can go Docker PS, and it will actually tell you like everything's up and running or not. That's what this is showing you here. Okay, it's up, running. Okay, cool. So I'll show you a v2 URL as well, or onion, sorry, will work. I got this big one that I will backspace out. So I just plucked one from the spreadsheet. And if you ever have a situation where OnionScan seems to be having a difficult time connecting, it can also be that it's just simply you have to restart the Docker container. So sometimes, and even in my Tor browser, you'll run into this where your Tor browser, it will just simply need a new connection. Like it'll need kind of a fresh route into Tor. So we can definitely, I can definitely restart it. That's something that we can do. It looks like the Tor proxy is actually needing a new route. So what we can do is we can actually go Control C. Oh, and this is also something. There we go. So we can go Docker stop Tor proxy. Okay, so that should stop it. And then I will hit Control R to recursively search through my history, and I'll go Docker space run, and I'll run it again. Yes. So this is something you can run into. Now, again, this is telling us that it's already in use because I've already had it. Now, if you're like a super technical person, you can mess around with a bunch of Docker commands. Or if you're like me, you can simply kill this Cloud Shell and you can fire up a new one. And it should give you a fresh start. So let's just go Docker PS. Nothing there. And I can actually, again, if you ever lose your history for some reason, remember all of our instructions are here. So you can copy and paste out of here. And they were saying that these double dashes here were the main source of my problem. I actually don't know if the Cloud Shell preserves your history that far back. It does. Ah, yeah, okay. So I'm actually going to need to reset this. So here's another one. If you need to reset it, just to save yourself learning everything there is about Docker, you can go restart. Okay, it will take a couple of minutes. All your data will be there, but it'll give you a fresh start. And I can see questions piling up, so it's a good spot to do this. And I've had to do this numerous times rather than I was getting used to like, okay, I'll mess around with these Docker containers. And I got tired of it. I'm like, I'm actually just going to reset this thing. All right, what do we got here? Cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So someone just affirming that this is a great way to look at onion sites. Yeah. And yes, this is recorded, so we'll be putting it up on YouTube as well. We're going to let our Cloud Shell machine come back again, and then we'll take a look at firing back up that Tor proxy. And you'll also note that when OnionScan is not running, you're going to get this, right? So this is the error you're going to get, can't connect, okay? And I see that cloudshell.dev is probably a domain I want to add to my Hunchly. If we switch back to the Hunchly dashboard, we can see it's actually been capturing everything for us. The correlation lab is really handy to capture because Hunchly will then be preserving what you're looking at in the correlation lab. All right, let's see if it's doing its thing. This is actually taking longer than normal. Pretty standard when you're doing webinars that things are not going to work the way they're supposed to. All right, a question about OnionScan itself. Oh yeah, so OnionScan, again, we have a link to the original repo. It's here. There were just some small patches that we had to do. Yeah. So that's why we cloned it over, made the small patches on our end. Yeah, definitely. So you can kind of go through and see all the original stuff here. If you're a Golang developer, definitely feel free to take a poke at some of the stuff in there. But you can see it's been 4 or 5 years since, it's actually almost 5 years to the day coming up since it's been messed with. All right, cool. Okay, we have another explanation for the double dash is not working. It's the encoding type. And this is taking an awful long time to reprovision. Give it a second. Great. Yeah, so I think what happened here was while we were running the scan, the actual torproxy Docker container looks like it either lost its connection to Tor or it needed a new route. It didn't get it. So instead of me running a bunch of Docker commands to clean that image out or to restart everything, I'm just resetting my Cloud Shell machine. So it was not a complete scan of all 2,000 hidden services, definitely. And I may, in fact, just even re-log back into this account and make sure that there's nothing else going on. But yeah, generally speaking, I've had it like happen where the Tor proxy will stop working at some point, and I have to go and like restart it. Other times it will just run for a long period of time. So let's just, we're back in here. Let's give it a run. Cool, so I just hit up arrow. All right, now we can get back into our long onion scan. Again, we can just test it real quick to make sure this is working. We'll see. And it'll be my luck that yeah, so it's actually, this part's working again, just as a quick test. I'll jump into the correlation lab in a second. We'll get the big scan going again. I see some more questions coming in. There we go. So look at this. This one's a good one. If you're either running a hidden service from a privacy perspective, this high risk stuff, when Sarah says this, you should pay attention to it, and I'll show you why shortly. All right. So I'm going to hit Control C, which is going to just stop, and I'm going to go back to, I'm just hitting up arrow, and I just want to go back to our big scan. All right, we're going to hit this one. So it's going to start doing its thing again. All right, cool. It's rocking and rolling. Okay, so let's hit the web preview. Cool, so 296. So one of the search commands that I show you here is mod status. So this is a server, it's part of Apache, the web server. But what mod status can do is actually completely expose the hidden services IP addresses that's running. So if we scroll down here, we can see that by typing in mod status, it's going to show us all the results, any hidden services that had it. All right. So by scrolling down, we can see that this actually had, this is a local IP address, it appears, right? So, and same with this. So not super useful, but this is one of those hidden services, and I don't believe there's anything nefarious running here. I think it's just a project, like a little project website someone's running. But what you can do is, I started on Shodan by clicking on here and going Apache 2.2, right? Sorry, 22.22. So I punched that into shodan.io. And then, well, actually, why don't we just do it? I might have to log into my account, but I might as well show this. So if I start with, if I start with this, copy that, paste, right? This is probably going to have 250,000 results. So now what I'll do is I'll go, okay, now this looks pretty unique, this PHP 54414 deb7u, right? So this is part of the server headers that are being responded back with. Now I've got 636 results. And you may be wondering why I'm doing this. Well, if I actually want to try to figure out who is behind this hidden service, if it holds abuse material like sexual abuse material, weapons, or for example, extremist content, what I'm doing is narrowing down the potential systems on the internet that I can go and investigate. So now I can grab another chunk and I can say, well, what about also that has Python 273? Now we're down to 10, right? So as you see, by kind of pulling in little pieces of data, I can start to narrow down potential investigative angles, and we can see that these servers are also responding with those same values that we found on the hidden service. So does that mean that the hidden service is one of these 10 websites? Not necessarily, but it's at least an investigative angle. Whereas when you're just looking at a hidden service, it could be literally anywhere on the internet, no ability to know where or what. And often, again, when I'm doing dark web research and I have OnionScan running and I have the correlation lab running, I can easily right click in here in Hunchly and say, take note, interesting service with mod status, right? And now I have a copy of that note in Hunchly. So if we just poke back here, yeah, it looks like it's much happier now. Cool. So let's go back to our correlations, 854. So I'll actually use that snapshot search again. And now we've got more stuff. So we've got more email addresses. We can actually do a search for crawl. That'll tell us some of the stuff that it's picked up while it's been crawling, some of the sites that it's found, the hidden services, tons and tons and tons of stuff here. Okay. So these are the titles. And again, these are all straight from the Hunchly dark web report, right? Dr. Chronic. Awesome. So we can see this is now growing quite rapidly. We're at 982. So we'll let that run again. I see some questions, maybe have some better correlation stuff to dig through. All right. Yeah, so Google does not index any hidden services. There is no real like Google of the dark web. There's a bunch of companies that sell services. There's a bunch of kind of like search engines that are free, but there's no real like Google for the dark web. So this tool does kind of give you the ability at least to kind of scan through and pull some out. I also know some people have written like dark web scrapers, right, and indexers that will go in and actually pull that stuff down, like pull down entire hidden services as well. OnionScan is really designed for kind of intelligence gathering and also to give you the ability to start pulling on threads. So as it's finding things, you'll see that there are ways for you to take the data that it's finding in these hidden services and bring it into surface web tools. So again, I'm just going to run that snapshot query again, see what else it found. Still only email addresses to note so far. Slowly building that up. We'll let that run some more. Next question, will Hunchly capture all of that? So while we were browsing Shodan and everywhere else, yeah. So we've got Hunchly capturing OnionScan. We have Hunchly capturing our Shodan search, right? So this is really nice. We have a permanent copy of our search right there. We can use, I'll often use tagging here in Hunchly. So I'll do like a OSINT or even like surface. I'll tag something with surface and I'll have something tagged with hidden, right? So what this will allow me to do, for example, in that when I'm doing this work here in Shodan, I can just tag this with surface, right? So this was part of my surface investigation here, right? So that I can easily find it later. And then if I'm looking at stuff in the correlation lab or specific reports, right, I can be marking those as well. Or I can literally just jump right into viewing the hidden service itself and take notes while I'm preserving it, right? So we've kind of covered how to preserve, scan, and also now begin analyzing them. All right, this is kind of useful, this kind of opening page as kind of a cover for a Hunchly report. So if, for example, you get an ask that, yeah, just go do like a quick scan of whatever you find, you can do that and then easily, we're getting a lot of email addresses here too. What you can do is just have this as a summary page, right? So I can take a note of this and just say onion scan summary. All right. And I'll show you in a second how I can turn that into a report. All right. Is it possible to set up a virtual machine with the same Windows version? I use Oracle VMbox. Yeah, you can totally set this up and compile OnionScan and run Docker. Actually, the Docker part, I'm not sure if you can or can't run Docker in a virtual machine, to be honest. That I actually don't know. So if someone here does that, let me know. Or if it's not possible, let me know. I've never done that, but I do run, yeah, okay, you can. You can run Docker in a virtual machine. So yeah, you could run, install Docker. You could install Golang 117 and then run through some of my instructions. My instructions are designed specifically for the Cloud Shell environment, but you should be able to do that as well on any system. All right, cool. I'm just seeing some more questions there. Great. All right. Let's take a look at how many correlations we have. We're up to 1734. And again, just to remind you, here's some of the things that you can use to search for. Let's do another snapshot search. So, and depending on the order it's scanning these things to, can depend on, what it's finding, where it's, what kind of stuff it's able to locate. The great thing is that it will actually pick up analytics IDs as well. So like Google Analytics codes that people have in their hidden services, you can go and pull them back out into the surface web. Much the same way we did here with Shodan, where we're looking at servers, right? It'll do the same thing where it's got like these analytics codes that you can run into other tools. All right. The great thing with OnionScan is just even using this snapshot query will show you everything that it's been able to discover so far. And this is really the nice thing is you can go through and quickly see like, oh, there's a Bitcoin address that it pulled out of this hidden service. So even if you're not doing this wide scale kind of scanning, where you're scanning thousands of them at random, if you have a more targeted scan where you have like, let's say 100 CSAM or abuse material hidden services that you've identified, you scan those 100, you come back from a coffee and you can look at it and go, okay, like what were some of the things that I saw just by running that one query snapshot, right? Oh, there, look at that, analytics IDs. So there you go. So right here, this hidden service actually has this Google Analytics ID. So this allows us to jump back out. I actually don't know. I don't think I've ever searched Shodan for an analytics ID. Let's see what happens. No. All right. So what I would use is like analyzeid.com and paste that in here. Again, let's maybe get rid of that space at the beginning because some tools don't like that. So it didn't find anything. And then the other one I'll quickly check. And if anybody else has an analytics ID search tool, now's a good time to say it. I'll check public dub, and voila. So I'm not going to log into my account, but public dub actually has 2 domains where it found that Google Analytics code, which means that we now have a link from the surface web into this particular hidden service. All right, so this hidden service here. So now what I can actually do is I can take a note again, hidden service with surface web link via Google Analytics, like that. Now, again, if you just spy on web, good one. DNSalytics, another good one. Thank you, great. That's awesome. Both tools that I constantly forget. So I'm going to take a note of those now again so I don't next time. Now, again, if the ask is really to provide a quick report, you can easily take some of the notes, some of the work you've done in OnionScan, and we can use the report builder in Hunchly, hidden service scan Feb. What is the date today even? I should know that. Feb 17, 2022. Oh, sorry, 22. I'm the worst for dates. I'm overflowing the actual title. So here I can just put summary. And this is our new report builder. So you're going to love this. I'm going to grab my notes. I can say this is my OnionScan summary, right? This was all the stuff I got. I can create a new section here with interesting hidden services. And this is where I can begin adding in some of the things like this one here, right? And this one here that had a mod status, and this one had a web Google Analytics code, for example, right? Cool. And again, with this, with the other one, we also had the Shodan search. So, whoops, I added a text box. I'm not even going to add any text, but I can actually use screenshots here. So this is new in our new report builder. So being able to grab a screenshot, I can like mosey through them here. Or I can search or filter based on Shodan. So here's that search that I had from Shodan that shows results. I'll add that in as well, right? Very nice. And then I can just quickly pump this out into a report. So I can just pump this out to a PDF. Yeah, I want a table of contents. And now I got a very quick and dirty report that has taken me from, I got the Hunchly Dark Web Daily Report. I've got a bunch of content that's of interest. I can jump into Cloud Shell, scan it, take a look at it, see what's interesting, maybe pull out things like analytics IDs or other things that are of interest, and then I can, holy, we're up to 4,000. And then I can quickly jam out a report that says, here's some of the interesting stuff that I found. So yeah, tons. We got 245 email addresses that are discovered now. Hunchly will actually extract all of these too, just from browsing here. All of these will be in our Hunchly dashboard. Over here, you can see our data tab is going to have those email addresses. And I'll even add the hidden service report from today, right? So I can actually add in my attachment tab, I can say add the hidden service report that I used, right? And just say like Feb 17, 2022 report used for scanning. And now the source Excel sheet that I used for doing all the scanning work is actually, it's in my Hunchly case. So it'll stay with my case. All right, cool. We'll just let this thing run while I answer some more questions. There is a ton there. Analytics IDs, and I'm just using the snapshot query. That's it. Again, there are other query commands that you can use, or you can search directly from the Hunchly dark web report. You can grab, for example, this title, Onion Dur Adult, and run it directly in as a search, and it will pull it up for you. All right, cool. Let's answer some questions. I need some coffee as well. Cool. So, good question here. When you browse the dark web, you should use Tails or Whonix. That's kind of the general recommendation. Tails and Whonix are both virtual machines that allow you to do dark web browsing, or you can boot them off of a USB stick even for additional protection for security measures. Is it safe using a Windows VM as you are doing? So again, depending on your threat model, yes and no, right? So there may be reasons why it's totally fine, and in this case, with this virtual machine that's isolated, and in my case, less of a concern. Yes, if you are in a high security network, you probably want to look at what are some of the other things that we need to do in order to protect ourselves. So, should we be using Tails in a VM or Whonix again in multiple VMs, right? So Whonix is kind of a two virtual machine setup, and our dark web guide actually covers using Whonix and VirtualBox in that manner, right? Another one that I've started using as well is actually using Chasm. So folks have heard me talk a lot about Chasm lately, but these Chasm workspaces, these secure containers, right? Another option, right, where you can use a secure container, meaning that if that container gets compromised, it's not bleeding over into your internal environment. Depending on your needs, these Chasm containers will work amazingly well for some of that as well. It's off your network and it's containerized and it's secure. So again, a lot of it is really like examining what is the risk that is posed to you, and what should you take to kind of what level of protection should you put in place to do that. For me, generally speaking, this is totally fine using an isolated VM like this. Again, does that mean I'm unhackable? Absolutely not. I used to work at a company and we were one of the first to develop, not we, one of our hackers was one of the first to develop the virtual machine escape, where you could escape from this virtual machine onto the desktop. And it was quite an impressive feat at the time, but it is a definite risk. So yeah, that's a very good question. All right. Another safe way to pull an image of the Tor service without actually going to the site. Copy and paste the .onion URL to archive.today. At the end of the .onion URL, add .pet. Oh, I didn't know that. So you can use archive.today. Archive.today. Hopefully there's nothing bad here. All right, so in here, I can actually I can get them to go and take a snapshot of a hidden service. Is that right? By adding .pet at the end of it? Oh, hopefully Kevin hasn't abandoned me. That is really cool. Amazing. 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 I had no idea. Very cool. I've taken a note of that. I'm definitely gonna be trying that. And I wonder also, does that mean that I can like search for like star.onion.pet? Oh yeah, okay. I'm not a robot. No, no, I swear. No, for real. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We're gonna play like that, are we? Let's try that again. Are you kidding? Come on. Really? You gonna do this to me right now? I'm not even connected into Tor. Maybe I'm just that, so I've generated that much suspicion at this point. That's amazing. I'm gonna dig into that because that is really cool. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're actually over the 1 hour mark, so I am going to. People are laughing at me because I couldn't actually convince them that I'm not a robot. Like seriously, I'm not. Oh no, nope. I give up. That's it. Yes, and check out Chasm too. Very cool stuff there. This is our main repo. Again, if you want to try to reproduce these steps or go and compile a newer flavor of OnionScan, definitely worth doing. Looks like it's still doing its thing. Very nice. And occasionally, yeah, you're going to lose your connection here. Don't fret. You just got to jump back into your Cloud Shell. And again, very easily, we've 4,000 correlations, and like this can go up to a lot. Tons and tons of correlations. You will find all kinds of stuff. Again, using that snapshot search will show you Bitcoin addresses, all kinds of stuff that might provide leads. And again, don't feel like you have to scan thousands and thousands of them. Build a curated list or scan them one by one if necessary. Also very useful. All right. Any other questions? All right. Yes, definitely. We'll chat soon. The YouTube video will have all of these resources in the description of the video, and I'll timestamp everything where I've covered certain topics. So you'll be able to easily jump into that and follow through these steps, including all of the foibles and screw ups and errors and stuff that I ran into, which is always fun and important because Lord knows you'll run into them yourself at some point. None of this stuff like a lot of this stuff and some of these tools they just don't get developed anymore. So finding these kind of creative workarounds to get stuff back up and running that might be 4 or 5 years old, and I know a lot of people have been dying for OnionScan to get revived. I would also love to see someone rewrite it in Python and kind of reboot it, which would be amazing. Awesome. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Again, our YouTube channel is YouTube. You can search for Hunchly. /C/Hunchly is also where you can find it. Our list of videos here. Great stuff from a couple of weeks ago with some mobile malware analysis too. We've done Maltego and other dark web stuff. Feel free to check there. And definitely, I thank you for showing up today. Always fun to try something new. Always a little wild to do it live and unscripted. And you never really know how these things are going to go. And please feel free to email me if you have any other questions. If you need a hand with something, if something's not working, just reach out to me. It's Justin at hunch.ly. I will send that to you all. And I hope to see you on the next webinar. Oh, also feel free to email me with anything else you'd like me to cover in one of these. A different topic, maybe whatever it is. Feel free to just send me your ideas if there's things you want me to cover, because that's largely why I do these things. It's really people ask for them, so I try to do them. And most of the time, it really has not much to do with Hunchly. So great. Thank you so much again. I'm going to close out this webinar now and start working on getting this recording uploaded. And I hope to connect with you over email, or you can come and find me on Twitter as well. Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye for now.